The fluorescent lights hummed, a low, buzzing sound that felt like it was drilling directly into my skull. My boots were damp from the slush outside, and the smell of wet wool and desperation followed me in like a stray dog. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing against the cold, familiar weight of the silver Omega. It was the last thing, not just the last thing of value, but the last thing that proved I was ever someone's son, ever a man who mattered. My father had worn it every day for 30 years. Now, it was just a ticket for a few more nights in a motel that smelled of cigarettes and bleach. I placed it on the glass counter. "I need the usual, Sal," I said, my voice cracking. "Highest you can go." Sal didn't even look at the watch. He looked at me. His eyes were heavy, shielded by thick glasses, and for the first time in the 5 years I'd been coming here, he didn't reach for his loop.
"I can't take it,"
he said flatly. I blinked, a cold spike of panic hitting my chest. "What? Sal, look, it's authentic. You've appraised it before. I'm not asking for much, just enough to—"
"I'm not talking about the watch, kid."
Sal interrupted, leaning over the counter.
"I've watched you come in here every week for months, and every time you walk out that door after a sale, it's like a piece of you stayed behind in the display case. You're selling your ghost, and I'm not buying the last of it."
"I don't need a lecture," I snapped, the bitterness of a dozen betrayals rising in my throat. I thought of the friends who'd bled my accounts dry when the business turned, the people who only knew my name when I was signing checks. "I need to eat. If you won't take the watch, I'll go down the street." Sal ignored the bite in my voice. He reached under the counter and pulled out a heavy, tarnished key.
"Follow me."
I followed him past the racks of guitars and the rows of dusty power tools to the very back of the shop. He pulled aside a heavy velvet curtain, revealing a narrow hallway that ended at an old-fashioned mahogany phone booth. Its glass was frosted with age, and its frame was reinforced with a strange, dull metal that seemed to absorb the light.
"Somebody pawned this years ago."
Sal whispered.
"It's an old phone booth of sorts, but it's more than that. Much more."
I stared at the booth. "What is this, Sal? A joke?"
You go in, you dial your own old number, the one you had before the dominoes started falling. Then you wait 10 minutes, the phone will ring. You answer it and it'll be you. A week before the pivotal moment, a week before you made the choice that ruined everything."
I laughed, a hollow, jagged sound. "You're telling me I can talk to myself in the past?"
"I'm telling you that you have an opportunity to make that version of you listen, to warn him, to tell him who is lying to him, to stop the bleed before it starts."
Sal said. I looked at the watch in my hand, then at the dark wood of the booth. What if I mess it up? What if he doesn't believe me? Sal held up 3 fingers.
"You get 3 calls. That's it. If you can't convince him in 3 tries, then what is done is done. The line goes dead forever."
I looked at my reflection in the booth's glass, haggard, broken, and desperate. Then I reached for the handle. 3 calls, I muttered, more to myself than him. I only need 1. I paused with my hand on the cold brass handle of the booth. The air in the back of the shop felt different, thicker, as if the oxygen were being replaced by the weight of years. I looked back at Sal. "How am I supposed to handle him?" I asked, the words catching in my throat. I mean me. 7 years ago, I didn't listen to anyone. I thought I was the smartest guy in every room. If a stranger calls me at midnight claiming to be a ghost from the future, I'm gonna hang up and call the police. Sal leaned against a stack of old amplifiers, his face disappearing into the shadows of the back room.
"That's the trap, isn't it? You're trying to convince a man who hasn't felt pain yet, a man who thinks he's invincible because his bank account is full."
He pointed a calloused finger at the silver Omega still clutched in my hand.
"Don't lead with the tragedy,"
Sal warned.
"He won't recognize the sound of your despair. He'll only hear a loser. If you want him to listen, you have to use the language he speaks. Use the secrets only he knows. The things you haven't told anyone, not the friends who bled you dry, not the women who left when the car was repossessed. Prove to him you are who you say you are, and do it fast. You've only got 10 minutes before that phone rings, and once you pick up, the clock starts ticking."
Jesus, Sal, tell me what you really think. I looked down at the watch. I thought of the night I'd sat on the edge of my father's bed, the smell of rubbing alcohol and Old Spice in the air, when he told me the one thing he'd never told my mother. A secret about where he'd actually been the night I was born. "He's arrogant," I whispered. "He's a prick. I don't even like the guy."
Nobody likes the person they used to be once they've seen the bill,
Sal said softly.
but he's the only one who can save you.
I stepped into the booth. The door folded shut with a vacuum-like thud, cutting off the sound of the shop. I picked up the receiver. It was heavy, like lead, and began to dial the number I hadn't called in half a decade. Each click of the rotary dial felt like a heartbeat. Now the wait. 10 minutes of silence in a dark box. The silence in the booth was absolute. Then the bell erupted. It was a loud mechanical clang that shook the wood beneath my feet. I grabbed the receiver, my palms slick with sweat. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was sharp, impatient, and terrifyingly familiar. It was the sound of a man who didn't have a second to waste on anyone who couldn't make him richer. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" "Listen to me," I said, my voice with urgency. "I don't have much time and I have something you need to hear. I've been granted a window, one brief, impossible moment to talk to you before you ruin everything we ever built." "Who are you?" The younger me let out a derisive snort. I could almost hear him rolling his eyes as he checked his own expensive watch. "Is this Marcus? If this is some kind of hazing for the merger, it's pathetic. I'm hanging up." "Wait," I barked. "Don't you dare hang up." "I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about the merger. You're thinking about the house in Miami. But mostly, you're thinking about the silver omega on your wrist and what Dad told you the night he died." The silence on the other end was sudden and deafening. "I had him." "How do you know that? Nobody knows that." The younger me whispered, his arrogance replaced by a sharp edge of fear. "He told me that in the hospital alone, not even Mom." "He told you he wasn't at the hospital when you were born," I said, the words tasting like regret. "He told you he was sitting in his car 3 blocks away, too scared to go in because he didn't think he was good enough to be a father. And he told you that his biggest regret wasn't the money he never made, but time. Time is all anyone's really got, and the most valuable thing we will ever have." I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "How do you know that?" he stammered. "How do you know that?" "I'm the man you become when you ignore his advice," I said, leaning my forehead against the cold glass of the booth. "I'm the man who forgot that the watch was a reminder of time, not a trophy of wealth. Now, if you want to keep that watch, if you want to keep your life, you need to listen, and listen carefully. Because in 3 days, you're going to sign a contract that will turn every person you trust into a predator." He was listening now, but still terrified and defensive. "Who?" He sounded small now, the bravado stripped away. "If you know so much, tell me who. Is it the board? Is it the bank?" "It's closer than that," I said, my eyes stinging as I stared at the scarred wood of the phone booth. "It's Marcus and Shelley." "That's impossible," he snapped, his voice flickering back toward anger. "Marcus has been my best friend since prep school. Shelley and I are talking about a ring, for God's sake. They're the ones who brought me the deal. They're the ones protecting me from the sharks." "They are the sharks," I spat. "Listen to me, you arrogant idiot." "Right now, in Marcus's private safe, the one behind the charcoal sketch in his study, there's a secondary ledger. He's been diverting the operational capital for 6 months. He's not building a merger. He's building a casket for your company. And Shelley, she's not looking at rings. She's looking at the offshore account routing numbers she tucked into that clerical folder she asked you to sign off on last Tuesday." "You're lying," he whispered, but I could hear the doubt vibrating in his throat. I could hear the sound of a man beginning to look around his golden room and see the shadows for the first time. "Check the folder," I urged, my voice cracking. "Look for the Cayman stamp on the 3rd page of the appendix. If you sign those papers on Tuesday, they trigger a default clause. You'll be personally liable for every cent of the debt, and they'll walk away with the liquidated assets. They'll leave you with nothing but the clothes on your back and Dad's watch. And within a year, they'll be married to each other on the money they stole from us." The line went silent for a long beat. I could hear his heavy breathing. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because I am you." "And I'm tired of being a ghost," I said, tears finally spilling over. "Don't let them take your heart. If you lose the money, you can make it back. But once you let people treat you like a carcass to be picked clean, you never feel whole again. Don't sign. Fire them both. Do it tomorrow." "Wait, I have more," I screamed into the receiver, but the line went dead. The dial tone returned, cold and indifferent. I hung up the phone and slumped against the wall of the booth. I'd warned him. I'd given him the names. I'd given him the proof. I pushed open the folding door and stepped out into the dim light of the shop. Sal was standing there, his arms crossed over his chest.
Well,
He asked. I told him. I breathed, wiping my face with a grimy sleeve. I told him about Marcus and Shelley. I told him about the ledger. He has to believe me now. He has to. Sal looked at me with a pained sort of pity.
go check the window, kid.
I walked to the front of the shop and looked out at the street. I expected to see the world shifted. Maybe a better car parked at the curb. Maybe my clothes turning into cashmere right there on my skin. But the rain was still gray. The slush was still dirty, and my reflection in the glass was still the same broken man. Nothing changed, I whispered, turning back to him. Why didn't it change?
Because knowing the truth and acting on it are two different things.
Sal said.
And some people, well, they have to be told more than once before they stop trusting the wrong people.
I looked at the mahogany booth. I had 2 calls left. I walked out of Sal's shop and into the wet, gray evening. The city looked exactly the same as it had 10 minutes ago, indifferent, cold, and broken. Sal had told me to wait, to let the time bleed out. If I had stopped the dominoes from falling in the past, the present would eventually catch up. It was like waiting for a wound to heal in reverse. I spent the first night curled up on a grate near the subway station, clutching my coat tight around me. Every time I drifted off, I expected to wake up in a king-size bed, the smell of lavender and central air replacing the stench of exhaust. But every time I woke up, it was just the rattle of the train and the hard concrete digging into my hip. Day 2 was agony. I walked past the skyscraper where my office used to be. I stood across the street, staring up at the 40th floor, waiting for the logo of the acquisition firm to shimmer and vanish, replaced by my name in bold steel letters. People bumped into me, cursing at the homeless guy blocking the sidewalk. They didn't know I was waiting for the universe to reboot. They didn't know I had just told a man 7 years ago how to save us all. He knows, I told myself, gripping the Omega watch until my knuckles turned white. He knows about the ledger. He knows about the betrayal. He's going to fire them. By the 3rd day, the Tuesday, I was a wreck. Tuesday was the day. In the old timeline, that was the morning I signed the papers. That was the morning I smiled at Marcus and thanked him for saving the company. While he was signing my death warrant, I sat on a park bench, the rain finally letting up, leaving the air damp and heavy. I watched the clock on the bank tower across the street. The meeting would be starting, 10:30. He'd be reading the contract, 10:45. I closed my eyes. Do it, I begged the younger me. Throw the folder at them. Walk out. Call the police. I held my breath, waiting for the shift, waiting for the memories of poverty to dissolve, replaced by memories of vacations, board meetings, and a life uninterrupted. I opened my eyes. A pigeon pecked at a discarded wrapper near my boot. The hole in my left shoe was still there, letting the damp air nip at my sock. A police siren wailed in the distance. Nothing. Absolutely nothing had changed. A dark, heavy stone settled in my gut. I hadn't just failed. I had been ignored. I had given him the smoking gun, the exact coordinates of the betrayal, and he had what? Done nothing? Or worse, had he tried to play it smart and lost anyway? I stood up, my legs stiff. The hope that had sustained me for 3 days curdled into a hot, focused rage. I marched back to the pawn shop. I didn't care about the bell on the door or the other customers browsing the used DVDs. I went straight to the counter. Sal was polishing a saxophone. He looked up, took one look at my face, and set the rag down.
Still here, I see.
He said softly. He didn't do it. I rasped, slamming my hands on the glass. It's been 3 days. The contract signing was this morning. If he had listened, I wouldn't be standing here wearing these boots.
Maybe he tried. Maybe he confronted them and they spun a better lie.
Sal suggested, though his eyes remained unreadable.
Marcus was your best friend, wasn't he? It's hard to dismantle a lifetime of trust with one phone call from a stranger.
I told him about the ledger.
And maybe Marcus had an explanation for the ledger ready to go.
Sal countered.
Or maybe your younger self was too arrogant to check it himself. Maybe he just marched in there and accused them without the proof, and they gaslit him right back into the pen.
I looked toward the back curtain. The phone booth was waiting. I have 2 calls left, I said. Sal nodded.
2 calls? But remember, the timeline has moved forward for him too.
Then I need to know what happened, I said, heading for the curtain. I need to know why he let us die. I didn't wait for Sal to answer. I pushed through the velvet, stepped into the booth, and pulled the door shut. The silence rushed in. I picked up the heavy receiver. My hands were shaking. Not from fear this time, but from fury. I dialed the number. Click. I waited. 10 minutes. Pick up, I thought. Pick up so I can scream at you. Help me. The voice on the other end was a whisper. It wasn't arrogant. It wasn't confident. It was wet, gurgling, and terrified. I froze. What? I asked about the ledger. The younger me wheezed. I heard a sound in the background, sirens. No traffic. Wind. Marcus, he laughed. He said I wasn't supposed to know. Where are you? I demanded, pressing the phone against my ear. I don't know, he sobbed. My God, the brakes. I was driving away to the precinct. The pedal went to the floor. I think I'm upside down. My blood ran cold. I remembered the car crash. In my timeline, the one I lived, I never checked the ledger. I signed the deal, went home and drank champagne. I never drove to the precinct. I had changed the past, but I hadn't fixed it. I had made it violent. Listen to me, I shouted. Stay awake, you need to— They cut the line, he whispered, his voice fading. Marcus, he didn't just steal the money. He rigged the car. You were right. You were— The line went static. I stared at the dead receiver in my hand, the hum of the dial tone mocking me. He was upside down in a ditch, or he was dead. And if he was dead, then I was dead. But my hands were still flesh and bone. The shop hadn't faded away. That meant he was alive, barely. I hung up. I didn't rush out to Sal this time. I sat in the booth, the smell of old cedar and panic thick in the air. If I called back now, to a hospital, to the police, Marcus would find out. Marcus would finish the job. In the timeline I lived through, Marcus was a thief. In this one, I had forced him to become a killer. I have to wait, I whispered to the empty glass. I stepped out. Sal was watching me, a polishing cloth in his hand. He didn't ask. He knew the look of a man walking a tightrope. He crashed, I said quietly.
If he's alive, he's a loose end.
Sal noted grimly. I know. That's why I'm not calling him yet. I need him to disappear. I need him to hurt enough to stop being arrogant and start being smart. I waited 4 days. 4 days of sleeping on the floor of Sal's back room. 4 days of pacing the cracked linoleum, eating cold soup from a can, and plotting like a general with no army. I knew my younger self. I knew that after a crash like that, he wouldn't go to the hospital if he thought someone rigged the car. He was paranoid. He would go to the one place nobody looked for a millionaire, the old hunting cabin in the Catskills. We hadn't been there in years. The phone line was copper and ancient, but it worked. On the 4th night, I walked back to the booth. This was it. Strike 3. I closed the door. The air felt colder this time, final. I dialed the number for the cabin. Ring. 10 minutes of silence. 10 minutes of praying that I hadn't bled out in the snow 4 days ago. Then a click. If you're looking for money, a voice rasped, sounding like it had been dragged through broken glass. You're calling the wrong house. The owner is dead. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He's only dead if you keep your mouth shut, kid. Silence on the line. Then a sharp intake of breath. You're the ghost. I'm glad you made it out of the car, I said, keeping my voice low and hard. Now listen to me. You can't go to the police. Marcus owns the precinct captain. Remember the gala last year? That donation wasn't charity. If you show your face, you don't make it to trial. I know. The younger me groaned. I heard the clink of a bottle against the glass. He was drinking the pain away. I figured that out when the brake pedal hit the floorboard. I'm done. I'm just gonna stay here. Let them take the company. Let them take it all. I'm alive, that's enough. It's not enough, I snapped. Because if you let them win, you end up me. You end up pawning Dad's watch for a sandwich. We are going to burn them down. But we have to do it my way. What's your way? The Cayman accounts, I said. You can't access them without Marcus's key, but you have something he doesn't know about. The secondary server in the basement of the office. The backups. Tonight, you're going to— He interrupted. Don't give me that weak garbage. You have a broken leg, not a broken brain. You need to drive back and— I can't access the server. Because Marcus didn't rig the car. Because Marcus didn't rig the car. I froze. What? I crawled out of the wreck. The younger me whispered. I was upside down. The fuel line was leaking. I saw the cut in the brake line. It wasn't a clean cut. It was jagged. Done in a hurry. So he panicked. What does that change? It changes everything, he said. Because while I was hanging there, waiting for the car to burn, a car pulled up. I thought it was Marcus coming to finish me. I played dead. I saw shoes, high heels, red soles. My stomach dropped, Shelley. She didn't pull me out, he said, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and shock. She leaned in. She checked my pulse. She smiled, and then she reached into my pocket and took the keys to the office. She made the call. Ghost. She told Marcus the brakes failed on their own. She played him. She's not his partner. She's the one stealing from him, too. She rigged the car to kill me and frame Marcus for the negligence. I leaned back against the booth wall, my mind reeling. In my timeline, I had blamed Marcus for everything I hated. Shelley, sure, but I thought she was just a follower. But she was the architect. She had played us both against the middle. She has the keys, I whispered. She's going to clean out the accounts tonight. She's going to leave Marcus holding the bag for the embezzlement and you dead in a ditch. You need to drive back and... No. Exactly, the younger me said. So here's the plan. I'm not going to the police and I'm not running away. What are you going to do? I still have the one thing she didn't take, he said. Dad's watch. I never told you this. I mean us, but Dad didn't just leave it to me. The back case doesn't just open to show the inner workings. It's a physical key for the safety deposit box at the downtown branch. The one with the original incorporation papers Dad had helped us with. The one that proves I own the IP, the company. I stared at the phone. I looked down at the watch in my hand. The watch Sal had refused to take. I flipped it over. I ran my thumb over the rim. There was a tiny, almost invisible seam I had never noticed in 30 years. I didn't know, I breathed. I know you didn't, the younger me said. Because you were too busy feeling sorry for yourself to look closely at what you had. But I've had 4 days in this cabin to look at this watch. I'm going to the bank tomorrow morning. I'm going to dissolve the IP rights. The company will be worthless by noon. Shelley will steal a shell. Marcus will go to jail for the fraud, and I'm gonna start over. You'll be broke, I warned him. The IP is the only value. If you dissolve it, you burn the money too. I'll be broke, he agreed. Wait, I shouted, realizing the implications. If you do that, if you change the path that drastically... Time's up, old man, he said. Thanks for the wake-up call. The line went dead. I stood there, the receiver dangling from my hand. I looked down at the watch. It felt warmer now. He was going to do it. He was going to burn the fortune to save the soul. I pushed open the door of the booth. Sal was standing there, but the shop looked different. The dusty amplifiers were gone. The smell of wet wool was replaced by the scent of fresh coffee and sawdust. The shelves weren't filled with pawned junk. They were lined with beautiful, restored antiques. Sal looked younger. He smiled at me, not with pity, but with recognition.
Did it work?
He asked. I looked down at my clothes. My coat wasn't tattered. It was a sturdy, well-worn canvas jacket. My boots were work boots, scarred but solid. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a wallet. It wasn't full of cash, but it wasn't empty. There was a business card inside. Miller & Son. Restoration and Carpentry. I looked at the watch again. It was still there on my wrist. I hadn't pawned it. I had never pawned it. Yeah, I said, a lump forming in my throat. He burned it all down. We started over from scratch.
Good,
Sal said, tossing me a set of keys.
Then get the truck loaded. We've got a job in the Heights.
I walked toward the door, the bell chiming above me. I wasn't rich. I wasn't the king of the world. But as I stepped out into the sunlight, actual sunlight, I realized I wasn't a ghost anymore either. I suppose I'm a man who found himself only by losing everything. A former captain of industry, now a carpenter with calloused hands and a quiet heart. I walked into Sal's pawn shop, looking to sell the last remnant of my dignity for a few nights of shelter. It seems that in the ledger of life, the most costly errors aren't the ones that bankrupt us, but the ones that leave us spiritually overdrawn. I learned that the hard way, dialing a number that didn't exist to save a man who didn't deserve it, only to find that we were one and the same. A transaction of the soul signed in invisible ink and filed away permanently somewhere in the quiet corners of anywhere. USA.